The rain-slicked streets of New York gleamed under the streetlights. A maze of memories I thought I'd buried. I was 18 when I last saw him, Ethan. My first love. The boy who made my heart race faster than any sprint. Now, 7 years later, I stood frozen on a Central Park trail, staring at the man who'd just called my name, his voice cutting through the dawn like a blade. Lucas. Lucas Bennett. Ethan's voice was deeper now, but unmistakable. He stood there, clipboard in hand, a whistle around his neck, his dark hair damp from the morning mist. I'd have known those green eyes anywhere, eyes that once held my entire world. My breath hitched, and for a moment, I was back in that cramped Brooklyn apartment, stealing kisses in the dark, promising forever until life tore us apart. I forced a smile, my legs itching to bolt. Ethan. Been a while. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. I hadn't come to this running group expecting a ghost from my past to be the coach. I'd signed up to train for the New York Marathon, to outrun the chaos of my life-me dead-end job, my crumbling apartment, my heart that never quite healed. But here he was, the one person I'd spent years trying to forget. "You're running now?" Ethan asked, a spark of surprise in his eyes. He stepped closer, and I caught the faint scent of cedar and sweat, a mix that sent my pulse into overdrive. "Didn't think you'd ever trade paintbrushes for sneakers." I laughed, but it was hollow. Back then, I was an art kid, sketching dreams of a future we'd build together. Ethan was the runner, the one who'd drag me to the park at dawn, teasing me about my lack of stamina. "Things change," I said, shrugging. "Guess I needed something to keep me moving." He nodded, his gaze lingering a beat too long. "Well, you're in my group now. I don't go easy on anyone." His tone was light, but there was a challenge in it, like he was testing me, or maybe testing himself. The other runners gathered, and Ethan clapped his hands, pulling us into a warm-up. I tried to focus, but my eyes kept drifting to him, his broad shoulders, the way he moved with purpose, commanding the group like he was born for it. He'd always had that fire, that drive to push past limits. It's what made me fall for him. It's also what broke us. 7 years ago, Ethan got a track scholarship to a college in California. I was supposed to follow, but my dad's diagnosis, cancer, stage 4, kept me in New York. I couldn't leave my mom to handle it alone. Ethan begged me to come with him, to start fresh, but I stayed. The distance grew, calls faded, and soon, we were strangers. I told myself it was for the best. I told myself I'd moved on. But as I jogged behind him now, watching his steady stride, I wasn't so sure. The park was alive with the crunch of gravel and the rhythm of our breaths. But all I could hear was the echo of his laugh from years ago, the way he'd whisper my name like it was a secret only we shared. "Pick it up, Bennett," Ethan called over his shoulder, snapping me back to the present. I pushed harder, my lungs burning, my legs screaming. He was relentless, barking orders, correcting form, his voice a mix of tough love and something softer, something meant just for me. After the session, I lingered, pretending to stretch. Ethan approached, wiping sweat from his brow. "You've got potential," he said, his tone professional but his eyes searching. "But you're holding back." I wanted to tell him everything, how losing him gutted me, How I'd spent years running from that pain. How seeing him now made me want to scream and cry and hold him all at once. Instead, I shrugged. Just out of practice. He didn't buy it. You never could lie to me, Lucas. His voice was low, intimate, and it cracked something open inside me. Before I could respond, a woman jogged over, all smiles and confidence. Ethan, you coming to the team dinner tonight? She asked, her hand brushing his arm. My stomach twisted. Was she his girlfriend? His fiancée? I hated how much it mattered. Yeah, I'll be there, Ethan said, his eyes still on me. The woman glanced my way, her smile tightening, then jogged off. Ethan stepped closer, his voice dropping. We need to talk. Not here. Meet me at Rosie's Cafe tomorrow. 7 p.m. I nodded, my throat tight. As he walked away, I felt the weight of 7 years pressing down on me. I'd lost him once. I wasn't sure I could survive losing him again. But something told me this was only the beginning of what I didn't know. Rosie's Cafe was a cozy hole in the wall, its walls lined with faded Polaroids and mismatched mugs. I arrived early, my nerves a live wire, and claimed a corner booth. The smell of coffee and cinnamon hung in the air, but it did little to calm the storm in my chest. Ethan walked in at exactly 7. His running jacket swapped for a navy sweater that hugged his frame. He spotted me, and for a split second, his face softened, like he was seeing the boy I used to be. Then his coach's mask slipped back into place, and he slid into the booth across from me. Thanks for coming, he said, his voice steady but laced with something raw. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, I admitted, tracing the edge of my coffee mug. Why'd you ask me here, Ethan? He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his eyes locking onto mine. Because seeing you yesterday hit me hard. Lucas, I thought I'd moved on. But you're still, he stopped, running a hand through his hair. You're still in my head. My heart lurched. I wanted to reach across the table, to touch him, to see if he was real. But I stayed still, my voice barely above a whisper. You left, Ethan. You went to California, and I stayed here. What was I supposed to do? His jaw tightened. I didn't want to leave you. You know that. But you shut me out. You stopped answering my calls. Because I was drowning. I snapped, louder than I meant to. Heads turned, and I lowered my voice. My dad was dying. Ethan, I couldn't just pack up and follow you. I had to stay for my mom, for my family. He looked down, his fingers tapping the table. I know. I was selfish back then. I thought we could make it work. But I didn't understand what you were going through. I'm sorry. The apology hung between us, heavy and unfinished. I wanted to hate him for it, but all I felt was the ache of what we'd lost. Why are you back in New York? I asked, needing to shift the conversation before it broke me. After college, I got a coaching job out west, he said. But New York is home. I came back last year to start this running program. I didn't know you'd be here, Lucas. I swear. I believed him, but it didn't make it easier. And that woman yesterday, the one all over you. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Ethan's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Jess. She's just a friend. A teammate. Nothing more. He paused, his eyes searching mine. You're jealous. I scoffed, but my face burned. I'm not. You are. His voice was soft, teasing, and it was like we were 18 again, flirting in the park, stealing moments between classes. But we weren't those kids anymore. Life had carved us into sharper, harder versions of ourselves. The waitress interrupted, refilling our coffee. It gave me a moment to breathe, to push back the flood of memories. When she left, Ethan leaned closer. I don't know what this is. Lucas, seeing you again, it's like no time has passed. But I know it has. I just want to know you again. Can we try that? I wanted to say yes, to fall back into him like I used to. But fear clawed at my fear of getting hurt, of losing him again. I don't know if I can, I said honestly. But I'm here. That's something. He nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. That's enough for now. We talked for hours. About everything and nothing: his coaching, my failed art career, the way New York had changed but still felt the same. When we finally left, the city was quiet, the streets bathed in moonlight. Ethan walked me to the subway, his shoulder brushing mine. See you at practice, he said, his voice warm but guarded. Yeah, I replied, my heart racing as I descended the stairs. I didn't know what I was running toward anymore, Ethan. The marathon, or something bigger. But for the first time in years, I felt alive. Practice became my lifeline, a rhythm of sweat and grit that tethered me to Ethan. Every morning, I'd show up at Central Park, my sneakers pounding the earth, my eyes searching for him. He was relentless, pushing us harder each day. But with me, there was something Elsean unspoken challenge. Like he was daring me to face more than just the miles. Bennett, you're slacking. He'd shout, but his grin betrayed him. Push harder. My legs burning. Not just to prove myself, but to feel his eyes on me. To catch that flicker of pride in his gaze. It was intoxicating. Dangerous. Pulling me back to the boy who'd loved him without fear. Off the trail, we started finding excuses to see each other. Coffee at Rosie's turned into late-night diner runs. Then walks through the city. Our conversations peeling back layers of the past. I learned he'd struggled in California, grappling with his identity in a world that wasn't always kind to a gay athlete. He learned about my dad's death, how it shattered my family, how I'd given up art because every sketch reminded me of him. One night, under the glow of a street lamp in Greenwich Village, Ethan stopped walking. Do you ever think about us? He asked, his voice raw. What we could have been. Every day, I wanted to say. Instead, I nodded. Yeah, but it hurts to think about. He stepped closer, his breath visible in the cold air. It doesn't have to hurt, Lucas. Not anymore. My heart pounded, but fear held me back. We're not kids anymore, Ethan. We can't just pick up where we left off. I know, he said, his voice steady. But we can start something new. If you want to. I did. God, I did. But the weight of 7 years' grief, regret, the fear of losing him again kept me silent. He didn't push. just gave me a small smile and kept walking. That was Ethan, patient, steady, always waiting for me to catch up. Back at practice, tension simmered. Jess, the woman from the first day, started hovering around Ethan more, her touches lingering, her laughter too loud. I told myself it was nothing, but every glance she threw my way felt like a challenge. One morning, she cornered me after a run. "You and Ethan go way back." She said, her tone sharp. "Yeah," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "Old friends." "Friends," she repeated, her eyes narrowing. "He talks about you a lot. Just don't distract him. Okay. He's got big plans for this team." I wanted to snap back, to tell her she didn't know our history, but I just nodded and walked away. Her words stung, though, planting seeds of doubt. Was I a distraction? Was I holding Ethan back, just like I did all those years ago? That night, couldn't sleep. I pulled out an old sketchbook, one I hadn't touched since Dad died. My fingers moved on their own, tracing Ethan's face, his sharp jaw, his intense eyes, the way he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. By dawn, I'd filled pages with him, each stroke a confession I couldn't say out loud. At the next practice, Ethan noticed something was off. "You okay?" he asked, pulling me aside as the group dispersed. I wanted to tell him about Jess, about the sketches, about the war raging inside me. Instead, I shook my head. Just tired. He didn't push, but his hand lingered on my shoulder, warm and grounding. "You're stronger than you think, Lucas. Don't forget that." I wanted to believe him, but as I watched him jog back to the group, Jess falling into step beside him, I felt the old familiar ache, the fear that I'd never be enough, that I'd lose him again before I even had him back. The marathon was 6 weeks away, and Ethan's training sessions grew brutal. Hill sprints, tempo runs, long distances, each one pushed me to my limits. But it was his belief in me that kept me going. He'd run alongside me sometimes, his voice steady, urging me to dig deeper. "You've got this, Lucas," he'd say, and for a moment, I believed I could do anything. Off the trail, our connection deepened. We talk about everything: his dreams of coaching a national team, my buried passion for art, the way New York felt like a living, breathing part of us. But we never crossed that line, never touched beyond a brush of hands or a lingering glance. It was like we were both afraid of what would happen if we did. One evening, after a grueling run, Ethan invited me to his apartment. "Just to hang out," he said, but his eyes held a question. I said yes, my heart pounding as I followed him to a small loft in Harlem, cluttered with running gear and books. It was so him, organized chaos, a mix of discipline and heart. We sat on his couch, a pizza box between us, and he pulled out an old photo album. "Found this when I moved back," he said, flipping it open. There we were, 18 and fearless, laughing in Central Park, my arm around his waist, his head on my shoulder. My throat tightened. "You kept this?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Couldn't let it go," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Couldn't let you go." The air shifted, heavy with unspoken words. I wanted to kiss him, to erase the years between us. But fear stopped me. Instead, I changed the subject, asking about his coaching plans. He let it slide, but I saw the hurt in his eyes, the question he didn't ask. The next day at practice, Jess was there again, her presence like a splinter under my skin. She ran next to Ethan, matching his pace, her laughter ringing out. I pushed harder, my lungs screaming, trying to outrun the jealousy clawing at me. When Ethan called a break, Jess stayed close, whispering something that made him laugh. I turned away, my chest tight. After practice, Ethan caught up to me. "What's going on with you?" he asked, his voice sharp. "You've been off all week." I wanted to lie, to brush it off, but the words spilled out. "It's Jess. She's always around you, and you don't know where I stand." His eyes softened. "Lucas, Jess is a friend. That's it. I told you that." "Then why does it feel like she's staking a claim?" I snapped, hating how vulnerable I sounded. Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "Because you're looking for reasons to push me away. You're scared. And I get it. I'm scared too. But I'm not going anywhere this time." His words hit like a punch. I wanted to believe him, but the past was a shadow I couldn't shake. "I need time," I said finally, my voice breaking. He nodded, his jaw tight. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." That night, I opened my sketchbook again, pouring my confusion onto the page. Ethan's face stared back at me, his eyes full of hope and pain. I didn't know if I could let myself love him again, but I knew I couldn't keep running from it. Time didn't make things clearer, it made them messier. Every practice, every coffee run, every late-night talk with Ethan pulled me closer to him. But fear kept me at arm's length. The marathon loomed, a ticking clock on my indecision. I was running out of excuses to keep him at a distance. One morning, Ethan switched up the routine, taking us to the Brooklyn Bridge for a sunrise run. The city stretched out below us, a sea of lights fading into dawn. I lagged behind, my legs heavy from a sleepless night, but Ethan slowed to match my pace. "You're fighting yourself out there," he said, his breath steady despite the climb. "What's holding you back?" "You," I wanted to say. "The way you make me feel. The way I'm terrified to lose you again." Instead, I shook my head. "Just tired." He stopped running, forcing me to stop too. The other runners passed us, their footsteps fading. "Lucas, talk to me. I can't help you if you shut me out." I looked at him, his face flushed from the cold, his eyes searching mine. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. "I'm scared." "Okay." "Scared of what this means. Scared of getting hurt again. You left once. Ethan, what's stopping you from leaving again?" He flinched, but his voice was steady. "I'm not that kid anymore. I've spent years regretting how I handled things. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." I wanted to believe him, but the past was a wound that hadn't healed. "I don't know how to trust you," I admitted, my voice raw. "Then let me show you," he said, stepping closer, one step at a time. We started running again, the bridge stretching out before us. His words echoed in my head, a challenge and a promise. That night, I sketched him again, this time on the bridge, his silhouette strong against the dawn. It was my way of holding on to him, of making him real. At the next practice, Jess was quieter, her usual bravado gone. I overheard her talking to another runner. Something about moving to Chicago for a job. Relief washed over me, followed by guilt. She wasn't the problem, I was. Clinging to fear instead of facing it. After practice, Ethan invited me to a team fundraiser, a gala to support the running program. Come as my +1, he said, his tone casual but his eyes intense. No pressure. I said yes, my heart racing. The gala was in a sleek Manhattan hotel. All chandeliers and champagne. I felt out of place in my borrowed suit. But Ethan's smile when he saw me made it worth it. He looked sharp, his tie a deep green that matched his eyes. We danced around the truth all night, sticking to safe topics, running, the city, our dreams. But when the band played a slow song, Ethan held out his hand. Dance with me, he said. Not a question. I took his hand, my pulse pounding as he pulled me close. The room faded, and it was just us, moving together, his breath warm against my cheek. I've missed this, he whispered. I've missed you. I closed my eyes, letting myself feel the warmth of his hand, the steadiness of his heartbeat. For the first time, I let myself believe we could have a future. The gala changed everything. That dance, that moment of surrender, cracked open the walls I'd built. Ethan and I started spending more time together, not just as coach and runner, but as something more. We didn't name it, didn't need to. It was in the way he'd brush my hand when passing me coffee, the way I'd catch him smiling when he thought I wasn't looking. But the closer we got, the louder my doubts grew. The marathon was 3 weeks away, and I was falling apart physically, emotionally. My knees ached from overtraining, my mind a mess of fear and hope. Ethan noticed. Of course. He always did. You're pushing too hard, he said one morning, pulling me aside after a run. You're going to burn out. I'm fine, I lied, wincing as I stretched my sore legs. You're not, he said, his voice firm. You're running like you're trying to prove something. This isn't just about the marathon, is it? I looked away, the truth too heavy to say. I was running to prove I was enough for him, for myself, for the life I wanted but was too scared to claim. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Lucas, you don't have to prove anything to me. You never did. His words broke something in me, and I kissed him. It was desperate. Raw. A collision of past and present. He kissed me back, his hands tangling in my hair. And for a moment, the world was right again. We pulled apart, breathless, and he smiled. Took you long enough. I laughed, the sound shaky but real. Shut up. From then on, we were inseparable. We'd run together, cook together, spend nights tangled in his sheets, talking until dawn. It was like we were making up for lost time. But the past still lingered, a shadow we couldn't outrun. One evening, as we walked through Central Park, Ethan stopped by the reservoir. I got an offer, he said, his voice quiet. A coaching job with a national team. In Boston. My heart sank. Boston. Yeah, he said, his eyes searching mine. It's a big opportunity, but I'm not taking it unless you're with me. I froze, the weight of his words crushing me. Boston meant leaving New York. My mom. The life I'd built. It meant trusting him completely. Something I wasn't sure I could do. I need to think about it, I said, my voice barely audible. He nodded, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. Okay, but don't take too long. The next week was torture. I threw myself into training, pushing my body to the brink, trying to outrun the decision I didn't want to make. Ethan gave me space, but I felt his absence like a physical ache. Practice. He was all business. His usual warmth replaced by a professional distance that cut deeper than I expected. The night before the marathon. Couldn't sleep. I pulled out my sketchbook, drawing Ethan as I'd seen him that first day strong. Steady. A beacon in the chaos. I realized I wasn't just scared of losing him. I was scared of losing myself. Of becoming the boy who'd loved him so fiercely I forgot who I was. But maybe that was the point. Maybe love wasn't about losing yourself, it was about finding the courage to be yourself. With someone who saw you. Flaws and all. Marathon day dawned cold and clear. The city buzzing with energy. I stood at the starting line. My heart pounding. Not just from the race but from the decision I hadn't made. Ethan was there. Clipboard in hand. His eyes finding mine in the crowd. "You've got this," he said. His voice steady. "Run your race, Lucas." I nodded, but my mind was elsewhere. The gun went off, and I ran. The crowd's cheers fading into a blur. The miles stretched out, each one a battle against my body and my doubts. By mile 10, my knees screamed, my lungs burned, but I kept going. Ethan's voice in my head. "You're stronger than you think." At the halfway mark, I saw him on the sidelines, cheering with the team. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, I felt invincible. But by mile 20, the wall hit me, legs were lead. My vision blurry. I wanted to quit, to collapse, to run from everything. Then I heard him. "Lucas, don't stop." Ethan was running beside me, against the rules, his face fierce with determination. "You're almost there. Don't give up now." I didn't know if he meant the race or us, but his voice pulled me forward. I pushed through the pain. The crowd a roar in my ears. The finish line a distant promise. When I crossed it, my legs gave out, and Ethan was there, catching me, his arms strong and sure. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so proud of you." I clung to him, tears mixing with sweat. "I'm coming with you," I said, the words spilling out. "To Boston. I'm in." His eyes widened, then softened, and he kissed me, right there in the middle of the chaos. The crowd cheering around us. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise. A new beginning. We spent the rest of the day together, wrapped in blankets, watching the city recover from the marathon. Ethan told me about Boston, about the life we could build. I told him about my fears, my hopes, the sketches I'd been hiding. He listened, his hand in mine, and for the first time, I felt like I could face the future. But the past wasn't done with us. That night, my mom called, her voice shaky. It's the house, she said. The bank's foreclosing. I didn't want to tell you before the race. My stomach dropped. The house was all we had left of Dad. Of our family. Losing it felt like losing him all over again. I looked at Ethan. His face full of concern. And I knew I couldn't leave New York, not yet. I have to stay, I told him, my voice breaking. For my mom. I can't let her lose everything. He nodded, his eyes glistening. I understand. But I'm not giving up on us. Lucas. We'll figure this out. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyer meetings and bank negotiations. Ethan stayed by my side, helping where he could. His presence a steady anchor. We found a way to save the Housia payment plan. A second job from but it meant staying in New York. Boston would have to wait. Ethan didn't take the coaching job. It's not the right time, he said. His voice calm but his eyes heavy. I knew he was giving up something big. And it tore at me. But he wouldn't hear my protests. You're worth it, he said. And I believed him. We settled into a new rhythm. Balancing training with late-night talks. My sketches with his dreams. I started drawing again. Not just Ethan but the city. The people. The life we were building. One night, I showed him a sketch I'd done of us 12 figures running side by side. The New York skyline behind them. It's us, I said, my voice shy. Not just the past, but now, and maybe the future. He pulled me close, his lips brushing my forehead. I love it, and I love you. I froze, the words sinking in. I hadn't said them back. Not yet, but they were there, burning in my chest. I love you too, I whispered, and it felt like coming home. Months later, we stood in Central Park again, the place where it all began. The team had grown, new runners joining, and Ethan was thriving as a coach. I was running again, not for a marathon but for myself, for the joy of it. My sketchbook was full, my art a part of me again, and Ethan was at my side, pushing me past every limit not just in running, but in life. We weren't perfect. The past still lingered, and the future was uncertain. But we'd learned to face it together, to run toward it instead of away. Ethan was my first love, the one I'd lost and found again. And now, he was my partner in every sense, pushing me, loving me, reminding me that some limits are meant to be broken. As we stood by the reservoir, the city alive around us, I took his hand. Ready to run? I asked, my voice light but my heart full. He grinned, squeezing my hand. Always. And we ran, side by side, into whatever came next.